Morning, this is Lower Mesquite Canyon, and I'm going to stop here and talk a cyberpunk anime.
Bubblegum Crisis.
Bubblegum Crisis is a cyberpunk action anime OVA series from 20 years ago. It was produced by the venerable AIC Studios and distributed in North America by Animego, one of their very early imports, originally distributed on VHS. The story is set in the year 2032 in Mega Tokyo, which is recovering from the second Great Kanto earthquake. There's a lot of Blade Runner influence in this, as great corporations have expanded their influence to essentially run the world in this bleak cyberpunk future. Here, great wealth and technological wonders coexist with stark poverty. The Genom Corporation is the nasty of the corporate lot, and their hot new technology are the boomers, artificial beings, biomechanical, often human in appearance, that perform a wide variety of manual labor, from housework to dangerous construction, and from sex toys to military combat. These things happen to have a significant design flaw, however, as they occasionally malfunction and turn very violent. Strangely, when they go nuts, they also metamorphise into big, ugly engines of death and destruction. But rather than a Project Recall, well, there's a general corporate and government cover-up. There's a new branch of the Tokyo Police, the AD Police, whose job is to chase after and terminate any boomers that go on a massive rampage. The stars of the series are the four members of the mercenary band called the Night Sabers. These four lovely young ladies slip into combat hard suits and flit around Mega Tokyo, brandishing high-tech weaponry and taking on boomers. They're a lot faster to respond and a lot more effective than the AD Police. They usually do this work for money, but sometimes it's just for plain old public service or even personal reasons. Bubblegum Crisis presents their action scenes in an almost musical video style, with an 80s style J-pop soundtrack pulsing over the action. In a way, that musical video style for the action scenes was reminiscent of the original Miami Vice TV show, which was still on the air in the US when Bubblegum Crisis series began. The Night Sabers mastermind and the designer of these incredible hard suits is Celia Stingray, daughter of the late Genom scientist Dr. Stingray, who invented the boomer technology for the Genom Corporation. By day, she now runs a lingerie shop. Her combat companions include Pris, a rock singer at a small club and a biker, Lena, an aerobics instructor, and Nene, who works as a computer geek within the AD Police Department itself. Leon is the AD police officer who's out to learn the secret behind the Night Sabers, or perhaps just get a date with rock singer Chris, though they always keep meeting among dangerous circumstances. Each OVA in the Bubblegum Crisis series mostly stands on its own. There's not a lot of background about how the Night Sabers got together or why in any of these OVAs. A lot of the background material to the setting and the Night Sabers and the Bubblegum Crisis videos isn't in the videos themselves, but is actually in the manga and liner notes. Luckily for English-speaking audiences, Animego has incorporated most of this implicit background into notes on the DVDs and on their website. Early in the series, the bad guy is the Genom Corporation, and the stakes are high. Genom's got some very secretive and nasty plans for some of their weaponized boomers. In the first episode, one of their latest creations jeopardizes all of Mega Tokyo. Several of the later OVAs focus on smaller and more intimate individual stories, even as Genom still lurks in the shadows. For example, a friend of Lena will threaten to expose some of Genom's secrets, or a friend of Pris may get evicted from her housing development to make room for a new expansion by the ever-growing Genom Corporation. One of the series' flaws is a lack of consistent supporting cast to anchor the main characters in their lives. Many of the episodes introduce us to an old or new friend of one of the women, except we've just met them for the first time, and they'll be driven away or killed off by the end of each OVA. It's as if each OVA has a guest star that has to leave by the end credits. That's pretty much true of the entire series, which is a set of independent stories. A few events from earlier episodes have consequences later on, but there's not much in overall plot advancement among the 8 episodes.
I've got a hunch Genom's involved, and that today's explosion is somehow related to it.
So we get another crack at him. But aren't they too big for us? Besides, I'm not too keen on this payment on delivery stuff.
I'm so sick of watching the AD police screw up. This is driving me totally insane.
Well, then the 3 of you should get started immediately.
Yeah, Animego's English dub is awful. It was early. Worse, they even redubbed the song lyrics for the English soundtrack. But the original Japanese soundtrack is still there, and their subtitles work just fine. I remember this series from when it first came out on imported Japanese Laserdisc, and I even picked up some of Animego's early VHS releases of it. Revisiting it was sort of disappointing, showing all the limitations and flaws of the sometimes stilted animation and the cookie-cutter setup of the plots. Still, it had an infectious energy, or at least it did 20 years ago. 20 years ago, so did I. Bubblegum Crisis was originally planned for 13 OVAs, but it lasted only 8. There were several contractual problems during production, such as Pritch's voice actress, Omori Kinoko, signing a recording contract with a different label that kept her from singing on the remaining OVAs. That left the cast with a popular but songless rock singer. Also, the character and mechanical designer, Kenichi Sanada, left the series around OVA 4. Bubblegum Crisis didn't so much conclude as peter out, leaving the continuing plot threads of the story hanging. Still, it was very popular among U.S. fans at the time. The creators openly acknowledged the influence of the Blade Runner movie on this series, and not just in the name Pris and her band, the Replicants. Bubblegum Crisis has guns, girls, mecha, monsters, violence, and rock and roll. What's not to like? Still, today I can only give Bubblegum Crisis 3.5 stars. The animation, away from the action, shows its age, as does the music. The plot goes nowhere and there's no ending. Bubblegum Crisis spawned several spin-offs. Bubblegum Crash tried to resume the series. The 80 Police Files was a short OVA series as a prequel that came out while the Bubblegum Crisis OVAs were still coming out. And then, 10 years later, there was a Bubblegum Crisis 2040 that tried to reboot the entire concept, joined by a TV series for the 80 Police the next year. And most recently, the Paradise Dolls OVAs revisited the Boomer universe. Animego's DVDs for Bubblegum Crisis contain many of the music videos that were released separately as the Hurricane video series at the time. Thanks for listening.